Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the LSU Sports Insider Podcast. I'm Zach Ewing, along with Wilson Alexander and Scott Rabalais, our dynamic team covering the LSU football team, part of our dynamic team covering the LSU football team, out at practice already today. It is Monday, August the 4th, and we had day 5 of camp this morning.
Correct.
And, we're here to talk some takeaways.
Yeah, I felt I don't know. I like Star Wars. Today was episode 5, The Offense Strikes Back.
All right.
Because Saturday was rough, and then they actually looked better today. I felt like coming into today, we were going to be having to talk a lot about, the offensive line looks bad, and reasons for concern. Maybe it's early, and who knows. But it really was much more competitive, which was encouraging going into their first fully padded practice tomorrow.
Saturday was like revenge of the defense. Today we had the offense strikes back. So
exactly.
Good Star Wars theme. Rab?
It's always hard to decide what is better. What do you want to see? What should you see to have a competitive team out there? Is the offense making a lot of strides? Is the defense making a lot of plays? And I think we've seen on different days and different plays, different situations, both sides making some nice plays where you go, that was well done. That was a good job there. You got good penetration. They made a good catch in tight coverage. Broke a good run. They stopped the run that time. So it's been a little of both. I think it's always hard to kind of try to walk that line and figure out what it is that you're seeing. But I think the last couple of days have shown that both sides are kind of getting their way at times, and maybe that's a good time for LSU. We'll see when they play somebody for real.
I mean, you want that back and forth, right? If one side was dominating every day, you'd probably be worried about the other side. But the back and forth means, there's some good parts of this team. So if the other side is competing, then that's probably a good sign.
2 years ago, you said, the offense is fantastic. And then, of course, you're like, when is the defense going to do something? And they never did.
Can they cover anybody?
Yeah.
The answer is next year.
That's right.
So we are counting down. We're 3 weeks away from game week when LSU plays Clemson in 26 days now, I think it is. So that's what we're counting down toward. But for a new year, we do have a new sponsor for this show. So want to shout them out. Our thanks to Jerry Lane Cadillac. You can command the road in a Cadillac where luxury, power, and presence come together. Experience it today at Jerry Lane Cadillac. We're going to dive into just a few specific things here. Like one thing, Wilson, you mentioned when I said, okay, well, what should we talk about? You said you think this team's depth is improved. What gives you that impression so far?
You look at cornerback, and Ashton Stamps is still out there with the first team defense a lot. And that's despite them bringing in Jakeem Jackson, a transfer from Florida, and DJ Pickett, the 5-star freshman. And, Mansour Delane is getting a lot of first-team run as well, the transfer from Virginia Tech. But it felt like Ashton Stamps could end up being an afterthought. He's a guy who played 13 games last year, and he's not a shoo-in to be a starter. He's like firmly in the mix there. PJ Woodland has made a lot of plays, a second-year player at corner as well. So you're seeing a lot of competitive depth there at the cornerback position in particular. I think wide receiver, they're running 5 or 6 guys out there who you think could reasonably play this season. Another position that I think maybe those are probably the two that stand out the most to me in that way, where it's like, okay, top to bottom, this roster should be improved from where it was last year. And Brian Kelly's talked about this a few times now in the preseason about how there were positions over the past couple of years where it was like, okay, well, that guy's a starter and there's not really any competition behind him. And it was easy to then in the beginning of the preseason know like who the first teamers are probably going to be. But it also was kind of an indication that the depth behind them was not where it needed to be. And now this is I also want to say, like, it's not perfect. Like the depth on the offensive line, I have questions about. The depth at maybe defensive, I was about to say defensive tackle, but I feel like they have 4 that they feel pretty good about right now. Maybe not be perfect in some spots, but I feel like it's just a lot better than it was.
We're going to go toward some of those question marks a little later in the show, but I think this is one of the things about the transfer portal haul that LSU got, Rab, and that's just, are all of these guys, all 18 guys LSU brought in, going to start? Well, no, probably not. There's only 22 starters on a football team. No. But if half of them start. That means the other half are just adding to your depth. And there will be injuries. There will be guys who underperform. There will be situations where you want to rotate in. And these guys who have, for the most part, Power 4 conference experience really help in that regard.
Yeah, depth is vital. I mean, like I was talking about the defensive line. Wilson said, if the other team's got a sustained drive going, you can't keep the same linemen out there. You got to rotate them in, give the starters or your frontline guys some spell, and you want those next guys to be pretty darn good. And then when injuries come, like we've seen, Wilson brought up wide receiver. Aaron Anderson hasn't done anything yet so far. Nick Anderson was
out there the first day.
Okay, we haven't seen him in a while, and then Nick Anderson was, has been limited, but they've got Barry Brown, and they've got these other guys who are out there who are there's some depth like Kyle Parker has come back. So it's like they haven't really missed them that much. Sure, you want these people in the game, but you're not like just in a totally bad way if you don't have all those players. So. Bauer Sharp, the tight end from Oklahoma. Trudez Green, I'm very high on Trudez Green. I think he's a tremendous talent. Is he the best blocking tight end in the world? Probably not. I mean, he looks more like a wide receiver. So they like to go...
6'7" wide receiver.
They like to go with those two tight end sets. And you're going to want Bauer Sharp out there. So that's vital. And I'm sure he's going to catch some passes too. He actually said hello to us today. He caught a pass and he came out. He said, "Hello, reporters."
I must not have been near you at that point.
And he went back on the field. So,
did you dap him up, Rab? Did you give him a little?
I didn't. I did not. I was too taken aback that he said one of those guys said anything to us. So,
thank you for not running into us.
It's very, very much so. The depth is clearly apparent. I think that's always what makes is the mark of a really good team, a championship contending team. Somebody goes down, a starter goes down. Other than quarterback, obviously, I don't think they can adequately replace Garrett Nusmire in the long term. But otherwise, you have to have other guys to step in. And I think this team has that or is building that at the various positions we've talked about.
And what I think that does for this season is that it raises both the floor and the ceiling of what this team should be able to accomplish. Now, there is still a scenario, I think, a realistic one fairly, that LSU could actually end up being 8-4 again because I think the schedule's pretty tough. And they play a lot of really good quarterbacks. But overall, this team just looks like it's better than it was last year. So you would expect that some sort of improvement above 8-4. If it was 8-4 again, then this season would be a huge disappointment based on what they have on the field right now.
To me, if you are the type of team that says, well, if everybody stays healthy, we might have something, then you're not really a contender because that's not likely. I mean, everybody has injuries at times during a football season. LSU is number 9 in the preseason coaches poll, which came out today. They are a bona fide playoff contender, and I think the depth is part of that. Well, I think back to the classic example in my mind is like 8 years ago or so, 10 years ago, Todd Gurley was at Georgia. He's having this great season, and he goes out with an injury. And you go, oh, what a blow to the Bulldogs. They're going to struggle without Gurley. And then you watch the backup, and you're going, who is this kid, Nick Chubb, who's like, I mean, but that's the classic example of like, in some cases, the backups may end up being better players than the starters. They're just not there yet. But that's what you want to build toward. I don't know if LSU is quite at that level yet, but certainly I think it looks improved to previous years. So that's sort of one of the positives. Like Wilson, you mentioned this, maybe one of the concerns still so far, and we should couch this with LSU hasn't practiced in pads yet. O-line play. Like, I think we came into camp saying this is a question mark. It's hard to see anything that, says it's better or worse than what we thought, and they haven't put the pads on. We haven't really seen them make a lot of contact yet. But what do you make of it thus far?
I think that it just needs to be good enough. Like, I don't think that this unit is going to suddenly just kind of come out of nowhere with 4 new starters and be great. But I do think they have a chance to be serviceable. And I say that after watching practice today. I would not have said that on Saturday. But I think that also just goes to show it's early in preseason camp. Somebody might have a good day one day and a bad day the next. And it's not really indicative of what you're going to get during the season, like one snapshot of a day. Saturday, again, like I said, they struggled in pass pro. They couldn't get anything going in the run game, even against a defensive front that Blake Baker was toying with a lot of sort of their cheetah package, a lot of edge rushers out on the field at one time. Like Jack Pyburn was lined up inside as a 3 technique. And they weren't able to create a whole lot of push. And the last 2 days, LSU has been at least in shoulder pads. So like up front, they've been hitting a good bit on the offensive and defensive line. But then today, like, they were opening up some things in the run game. Caden Durham had a nice run, and they were giving Garrett Nusmire enough time to operate, and he then was making throws. So I feel like it's still a work in progress. I don't really know what we're going to see week 1 against Clemson, and that's such a tough start out of the gate. But the other thing is that we kind of can tell so far is that we came in this preseason saying, like, this is a pretty big competition up front. It feels mostly settled, actually. The only thing that we're seeing change sort of day to day is maybe who's at left guard. But like Braylon Moore, Brian Kelly said today is going to be the center. When back in the spring, he and DJ Chester were rotating a lot at center. They seem to have their tackles sorted out. Josh Thompson's probably your right guard. So it's really just who's going to be left guard. And I feel like that's a better actually place for them to be at right now, 5 days in, is you're not actually trying to figure out multiple starters. You really need to settle one. And then I think they pretty much got their line set.
That does maybe leave you more concerned about the depth. But obviously, you'd rather have the starting 5 settled than have a bunch of guys, like you said, going back and forth. But you do maybe worry about that second team. It's another area where you're almost bound to have some injuries. So what does LSU have there? I mean, I think that it's probably something we're going to talk about for the rest of the year.
Yeah, they've got a few guys who I think can feel comfortable putting out there at guard. Cohen Eccles got a little bit of playing time at the end of last year. He's been in the mix. Paul Mabinga started 4 or 5 games for them at the end of last season. He got some first-team reps today. Chester is part of that. The area where I think you have concern is if, like, Tyree Adams goes down at left tackle. Because right now, freshman Carius Kern has been the left tackle. And while he was described by Tyree Adams as the strongest freshman that Tyree Adams has ever seen, that's a tough spot to be thrown in as a freshman. We saw Will Campbell and Emery Jones thrive with that. That is an anomaly, not really the norm. And so, they've got some guys there, but if they do have an injury up front, then you're going to be throwing in some people at tackle who probably don't have a lot of experience. Maybe Josh Thompson can kick out to left tackle, although it's never played there. So that's sort of, where the concern would be for me. I do think they have at least a few options on the interior.
And that's going to happen. Right? You're going to lose so much injury. It does seem unrealistic as compared to maybe on the defensive line, where I think you could make an argument they're too deep everywhere. The offensive line, they got eight guys. Eight or 9 guys. You can probably think of. You're gonna have to have someone who moves around. Say Braylon Moore gets hurt, DJ Chester is gonna have to move back to center most likely. Then someone else is gonna have to go play left guard. Who's that gonna be? You need some flexibility and some luck that you don't get someone like you said, Adams, who's just like there's just no adequate replacement out there. Kern, it looks like he's going to be an excellent player eventually, and he's talented, but it's just the experience thing. SEC defensive linemen are going to make you look silly because of their experience and their technique, and they're just going to get around you. Again, this is why Garrett Nusmire has to be mobile in the pocket this year and take off and run a little more. In my opinion, that he's got to help those guys out, and not that he's a statue, not that he's ever been that, but he's got to be more willing to run for those yards when they're not blocking long enough for him to complete the pass to get you the first down on 3rd and 4.
When do we get a chance to see these guys in pads?
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I don't know that we'll see them in pads, but they will be practicing in pads.
What changes then? What do you look for when the pads come on?
Oh gosh, I mean, I guess the same sort of things. It's
just
are they getting some
obvious.
push?
Yeah,
are they getting some push in the run game? Are they giving Garrett Nusmire enough time? I mean, Bo Bordelon summed it up succinctly on Saturday, talking about how the offensive line's job was to protect Nuss and run the damn football. Then he apologized for cursing, and that's what they've got to be able to do.
It's a good soundbite anyway.
It was a very good soundbite.
Yeah, we don't mind that. You are watching the LSU Sports Insider Podcast. It's brought to you by Jerry Lane Cadillac. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more show after this in 90 seconds.
I think the biggest thing that separates us is our people. We have a really amazing staff that really care about their customers, really care about our product. At Jerry Lane Cadillac, we value trust and transparency above all else. We have a little bit of something for everyone, so whether it be the 2025 Escalade, any of the smaller crossover vehicles, the XT4, 5, and 6, we've also got a wide variety of new EVs, including the 2025 electric Escalade IQ. I think the product lineup right now is the best that it's ever been in Cadillac.
You know how far I've gone, now I'm home again. I'm feeling more alive these days than I've ever been.
At the Baton Rouge Clinic, our sole focus is to provide exceptional health care for your entire family so that you can get back to doing what you love most. We are caring for generations.
You gave me love.
Did they ask you to do the commercial too?
Yeah, but they just gave me one line.
Bet like a Caesar. Like, we're gonna sit here and we're gonna tell them how Caesar's Sportsbook is just so easy to use that you can watch and bet thousands of sports events, even some NFL games.
They'll probably show us betting on our favourite players and teams at all the Vegas hotspots too.
Like, we have time for that montage.
I told him I couldn't do it.
They couldn't afford me.
Welcome back to the LSU Sports Insider Podcast, brought to you by Jerry Lane Cadillac. Command the road in a Cadillac, where luxury, power, and presence come together. Experience it today at Jerry Lane Cadillac. You can get all of our shows and all of our practice highlights, interviews, all of those sorts of things at the LSU at NOLA.com YouTube channel. Search for LSU Sports Insider on YouTube. Also available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We'll be back later this week. Koki and Reed will stop by on Thursday for another podcast. We'll talk about that first padded practice. And Wilson, you'd mentioned during the break here, like another area you're looking forward to is seeing how some of the DBs, the linebackers, the running backs, that they operate when things get a little more physical with pads on.
Yeah, especially because like we've seen LSU in the run game here the past couple of days. It's like hard to really tell what it is that you're seeing. Like, is a guy, because a guy isn't actually, you know, might get popped at 2 yards, but is he breaking that tackle anyway, right, or is he going to go down? Like, that stuff's just, you don't really have a good sense of that until they're in pads and they're actually doing live tackling to the ground, which they haven't done yet. And so that I think will be sort of, you know, you start to separate people when you get pads in. And I think at those positions in particular, it'll be really interesting to watch, sort of like, okay, how does Caden Durham and Caleb Jackson look at running back? We haven't really seen much from them so far because of that. You know, Harlan Berry, the 5-star freshman. Once pads are on, there's live tackling. What do you see out of him? So I think that those will be the things I'm looking for, maybe more so even than like the offensive and defensive line going at it, more so that live tackling. Who starts to sort of rise to the top when you get that much more physical?
Yeah, there's always this balance between it's football, we need to see what these guys can do when they get hit and they get tackled, versus we play Clemson in 25 days, let's not get everybody hurt too.
Well, they've taken a very slow and measured approach. You know, it's gotten more so over the years in football. I remember two-a-days, you know, in practices. You know, there was a very common thing during August camp is you have two-a-day practices. That's a thing of the past. They've started inside. They go outside. Today was, you know, we saw most of the practice. It was pretty limited. You know, an hour or so. But Brian said there's a 2-hour practice coming up. There's going to be scrimmages each Saturday leading up to the Clemson game, and so it starts to get real. But yeah, these are, you know, it's great to run around just in shorts and everything and look good, but putting the pads on and having that extra dimension that extra weight is going to be something different. Running back is a big one, as Wilson mentioned. Running back is a big one. You have two running backs up there. You Harlan Berry. What about Juwan Johnson? You know, can he give them some depth there? I mean, you need another guy. You need another guy, and he can play a lot of positions. But
yeah, we've seen LSU experimenting with him a lot over the past few days. He, as we know, in the spring he was playing quarterback, and he's still participating in some quarterback drills after coming to LSU as a DB and then switching to running back last season. But we watched him take a handoff today. He was in the backfield next to Garrett Nusmeier, motioning out. Like, there might be a role for him. We even saw it like in little moments last year as a freshman once they moved him to running back that like he he can do some things with the ball in his hands. I mean, that's going back to high school when he was so productive at LCA. And so LSU's got an interesting decision on its hands. Brian Kelly was talking about it today. They know that they're going to play him in 4 games. The question is, do you play him in 5 and you redshirt him, or do you let him maybe really stick at one position and then play out the year and be an asset in some way? It probably is going to depend on what he does with the touches that he has and what else LSU has on the offensive side. Because you don't need him if you don't need him, then you probably just want to give him time to continue to develop, because they already used him in more than 4 games last year. This would be his redshirt year if LSU can get him one.
Are they going to have someone to do a Wildcat package or something like that? I mean,
they might. Brian Kelly was talking to me about that in the spring when we actually started talking about Juwan, was that they might use him in that kind of way. Like, we saw last year LSU didn't have that run threat on zone reads in the red zone, that kind of thing, because Garrett Nusmire wasn't doing it. He said, and he brought up Juwan Johnson as maybe that could be a role for him. But also, I wonder, do you really want to take Garrett Nusmire off the field in a high pressure situation on 3rd and 4, and on the road at Alabama for a guy who doesn't have that kind of experience in command of the offense? I wouldn't. I feel like that's a bad decision. That reminds me of like when Kirby Smart put in Justin Fields as a punt protector and then tried to run a fake punt against Alabama in the SEC championship game. It's like, it feels like a desperation type thing.
I'm thinking of 1st and goal, 5 or in, and like, let's try it, and then if it doesn't work, well, let's go back to
just don't go to it on 3rd down, maybe first down.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of thing that if it doesn't work, the coach gets lit up for, right? Like, it's like, what are you doing? But it's a different look. I mean, I think we could see it, and I do think LSU is going to try to do different things with the running game. They've got to do something to spark it. We've talked about Nuss maybe running more himself. And then the obvious thing is the run blocking needs to be better, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they got to be more physical up front. And one guy who has been standing out in that regard so far is Braylon Moore, the transfer from Virginia Tech, who we mentioned earlier, has already kind of solidified that he's going to be the center. Brian Kelly's really impressed with him, and I think it's easy to see why. But he had a moment on Saturday where he got up to the 2nd level on his blocks. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he seems to move pretty well, has good experience and command. And, we'll see once we get to week 1 exactly how good he is and all that. But, he's somebody who has stood out to the coaching staff, at least to this point.
Got to be strong over the middle in every sport. It's a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true. You got to be strong over the middle. That's quarterback, that's center, that's middle linebacker, that's certainly safety. And they're starting to answer some of those questions. I don't want to pick on DJ Chester too much, but that was a big problem. They just weren't getting that push up the middle last year, and they need Braylon Moore to be that guy.
I mean, and it wasn't just him, too. I mean, it was the guards. They were big guys in Dellinger and Frazier, kind of road grader types, but they didn't really do the road grading that they needed to. And LSU, when it changed its run schemes last year without Jaden Daniels, it really probably needed guys who could pull and get through the hole a lot faster than it was able to last year. And I wonder if that could be improved in some way this season. Well, it needs to be.
Yeah, no doubt. But you mentioned Braylon Moore. It's a good time to talk about some of the early camp standouts we've seen. And you mentioned some positions it's hard to gauge thus far, running back, linebacker. But one guy I think who's been really good thus far and certainly had a highlight, I think, in Saturday's practice is Nick Anderson, the transfer receiver from Oklahoma.
If he stays healthy, he can really make a difference for this team because he's got the size at 6'4" that nobody else in the receiver room has. I mean, some of the younger guys do, like Kylan Billiot's a tall guy, but he's not ready to contribute the way that Nick Anderson is. And we didn't get to see Nick Anderson at all in the spring because he was limited by the hamstring. And then first day of camp, he's coming out of the concussion protocol following the car accident that he was in. But now finally that he's up to full speed, you're like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, there's a reason this guy caught 10 touchdowns as a freshman at Oklahoma in 2023. He is somebody who the LSU's going to play to the boundary, who they really trust on 3rd and 8 jump ball you need to play. He's going to be somebody who they think they can go to. And he doesn't have the downfield straightaway speed that Chris Hilton and Barrion Brown have. But the way that he can sort of maintain his speed while going through his breaks and his cuts is impressive stuff. And we've seen him getting more and more involved in the offense over the past few days, catching a lot of passes. Still maybe not firmly established as a first-team wide receiver at this point, but the involvement is going up and up. And as you mentioned, the play he made on Saturday was just in one-on-ones against Mansour Delane. But he got a little bit of separation. Ball was underthrown slightly, so he had to kind of come back to it. Jumps up, makes a catch over Mansour. That was really caught my attention, and I think that this guy, if he can just stay healthy, is going to be pretty good.
My kids like to, when they play football in the backyard and they catch one, they always like to do the head top thing, but they'll do it when it's not appropriate. You know, you're like, what are you talking about? You're standing there. That was a head top. That was, I mean, he got up and got that thing. But it's like a round peg, round hole transfer situation, I think, because you look at Chris Hilton, you look at Aaron Anderson, the guys LSU is bringing back, and they're the speedsters. They needed that, like you mentioned, the 3rd and 8 target, the big guy who can really move the chains in a tough drive sort of situation. So I think Anderson's one. Anybody else on the defensive side of the ball? Maybe was it Bernard Gooden you mentioned, the South Florida transfer?
Definitely.
Yeah, Bernard Gooden looked good. He's an old name, but Harold Perkins has looked very good, I think, in his return. You know, he's active all over the field. He's showed like looks like he's totally recovered from the ACL injury from last September. It's going to be 11 months ago. He had an interception today. Everybody went to their notebook. You can see all the notebooks scribbling. He, as Kelly said, he baited Nusmire into an interception. And that may give you pause on the other side if you're a Tiger fan. Say, Garrett shouldn't throw the ball there. You know, why is he getting baited?
Garrett grabbed his helmet and was cursing at himself after it, knowing he'd made a mistake.
But we saw Perkins drop back into coverage. We saw him as an edge rusher today, all over the field, looking like the disruptive Harold Perkins of old. Again, it's just practice. Hadn't played anyone yet.
That's music to LSU fans' ears, man. They've been waiting for that.
It's a good sign. It's a good. It's not like he's going to be the Butkus Award winner or something like that. But it's a good sign.
Absolutely, especially coming off the ACL, to be able to participate this much and seemingly have no restrictions on him through the first week of camp, like you said, less than a year out from that injury. That's really impressive. I mean, there was one play today. He was playing on that star position. So he was kind of, near-ish the middle of the field, but kind of out in space, which is where they want to have him. Short throw to the flat to Bauer Sharp, and Harold Perkins tracks it down, rips through a block from Tradez Green, and sort of tags off Bauer. I mean, holds him up. Like we said, they're not tackling to the ground yet. But that was a good play. And if he can also showed, I think, in that moment, some decisiveness, moving, fast, letting his speed work because he's not maybe overthinking things. I'm curious. Let's circle back to this in like 2 weeks. I'm really curious to see if this ends up being the most disruptive version of Harold Perkins we've seen in the preseason over the past 3 years, because it's starting to trend in that direction. He had some moments that I can recall in 2023. But it was often times where we were like, haven't seen a whole lot from Harold Perkins this preseason. And then, last year it really didn't feel like we saw much from him. And so now this year he's making plays, and let's see if that can kind of keep up and continue. He's another guy who's going to be fascinating to see once they pull pads on, if that kind of stuff if he maintains this sort of encouraging play.
Conversely, I think Wood Weeks, who broke his leg in December in the bowl game, right at the end of December, I don't think he's looked quite.
No, he doesn't
quite
quite
up
look
to
there
speed
yet.
yet.
No, he's like, even on Saturday, like, he didn't do anything when LSU went to contact periods, and so I don't need to see a lot from Witt to feel okay about him going into the season. But in terms of like how maybe productive he is in camp, but I need to see him start to do more like full contact 11-on-11 stuff, and I think he'll probably get there, but it is not happening right away. So
yeah, I think training camp can be so long. Like, you want these things to happen right away and see them, and you've got to step back and say, they're only a quarter of the way through at this point, like not even a quarter of the way through. So there is time. But that's an excellent way to transition into our injury report, which is brought to you by the Baton Rouge Clinic, your trusted healthcare provider in the heart of Baton Rouge. Whether you're in need of primary care, specialist services, or urgent care, the Baton Rouge Clinic has you covered with a team of dedicated and experienced professionals. Visit BatonRougeClinic.com to learn more or to schedule your appointment today. The Baton Rouge Clinic, caring for generations. And on the injury report, you mentioned Whit Weeks practicing, but still officially limited, maybe not doing quite everything. The Aaron Anderson, I guess, is supposed to be back Wednesday. Is that what we said? But he has not practiced since the first practice. What is the deal with Aaron?
Yeah, so Aaron had some inflammation in his left knee, Brian Kelly said. this kind of comes from an injury that he had his freshman year in Alabama. He had some issues with his MCL and his meniscus. Our Koki Riley reported on a story about that last year. Kelly described it as a cartilage injury. And it required off-season surgery after that year, and then he transferred to LSU and hasn't seemingly had any problems since. But Kelly said that he worked out and was doing everything, had just a really high volume over the summer. And his theory basically is that all that volume just kind of caused that inflammation. Kelly told me yesterday when we got to speak at LSU's service day at the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank that Aaron basically has a cranky knee. And there's some things there that would resemble kind of like arthritis. And it's not like full-on arthritis.
He got
like
old man knees.
Yeah, the left knee there has some properties of that is kind of the way he described it. And yeah, he used that word cranky, and that they had to kind of take care of it. They did a bunch of testing. Everything came back good on the testing. No like bone on bone, no chips or anything like that. But they wanted to kind of go ahead and get it taken care of. So Kelly said he had Kelly used the word infusion done on his knee, and that he should be back out there. The hope is on Wednesday, and that Kelly doesn't think it's going to affect his availability for the season at all. So sounds like things are good there, and we'll know for sure once we see Aaron practicing fully again.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the time of year to take care of this stuff. Versus,
they wanted to get. He said we didn't want him. Kelly said that they didn't want Aaron to be a habitually sore guy like throughout the year, and so they might have to do some workload management from between games, but with the goal of not letting it affect him at all on Saturdays.
I would expect that's definitely going to be the case. You have to keep him on a pitch count. It's they're going to watch it.
Any other injury concerns yet? Obviously, this becomes the concern ramps up when you go into pads. That's where you get more. But anything else in the early stages?
No, and other than Solomon Thomas, the freshman offensive lineman,
broken foot.
Yeah, with the foot, but no, and that's a good thing, and that's something that Kelly said that through day 4 to the same point last year, they had a handful of soft tissue injuries. And but he said that year over year to the same point early in camp, they've had fewer and fewer soft tissue injuries. And Kelly says that the soft tissue injuries are most likely to occur within the first, I think, 6 days. And they haven't had any as far as we know yet. As of yesterday, Kelly said they hadn't had any. And so, knock on wood, as of Sunday, they had not had any. So that's kind of the other update is that there seem to be getting through this period of where he would be concerned about those things happening. They seem to have gotten through that to this point anyhow. But again, knock on wood or whatever other
whatever superstition you want to participate in there. We're right on the borderline of that, and like I said, pads coming on, other things can have those. Then you get into the more contact type injuries. But
when y'all don't have wood available to knock on, do you knock on your head? That's what I've always done.
I have been.
I've resorted to that. Yes.
Yeah.
Over the years.
Yeah.
I try not to be super. The only time I do that is when I get on a plane. I tap on. It's always worked. So.
So don't get down on
you're
us.
betting 100% on that.
Yeah. Okay, so my plane thing, I don't have a fear of flying, but my plane thing is that right as the plane's taking off, I got this from my dad. I say, put the spurs to her, Chuck.
The right stuff. You gotta
absolutely.
have that. And off we go with the Wild Blue Yonder. That's right.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we'll go off into the Wild Blue Yonder, and we'll meet back Thursday. Like I said, Koki and Reed will be here. They've been observing practice also. What are y'all hoping to see over the next few days, next week from LSU that maybe we haven't discussed yet?
Well, I don't think we've talked enough about Nusmire today. That would be the only thing is I just want to continue to see more of Garrett. He had a great day on Monday. Did we talk about him? I forgot. I don't think that we really mentioned Garrett.
And he was a little down on Saturday. Correct?
Yeah, he wasn't getting a whole lot of time in the pocket on Saturday. The offense in general just seemed really clunky on Saturday. Today he made some great throws. He got the defense to jump off sides and then took advantage of the free play down the sideline to Trey'Dez Green, gave him a jump ball, and 6'7" Trey'Dez Green was able to go up over Jordan Gilbert. I say he got a foot down, probably be reviewed during the game. Let's give him the catch.
Certainly got it today at practice.
Yeah.
In the game, it would be different.
Threw a great over-the-shoulder ball to Chris Hilton down the sideline today. And then there was also one where, Garrett never ran much last season, but he used his feet to at least manipulate space in the pocket really well. And we saw that again today. There was some pressure coming off the edge. He climbed the pocket, hit Chris Hilton over the middle for a completion. And then there was pressure bearing down on him at one point. Might have been a sack in a game. Again, this is one of those things where it's like you're tagging off on the quarterback. It's hard to tell. but he completed a throw to Xavier Thomas. And it seems like the coaches sort of thought the offense won the rep, and Garrett thought the offense won the rep because he was fired up after that play. So just good day for Garrett Nusmire. And, we've seen to this point the majority of 3 of the 5 practices. And is that right? I think it's 3 of the 5 that we've seen a lot of. And Garrett has looked good for most of those. And so,
as you would expect. I mean,
yeah, like day 1, he looked really sharp. Today, he looked really sharp. Again, kind of a down day on Saturday, but overall, you're liking what you're seeing from your returning quarterback there.
What you got in those notes there, Scott?
The safety position, like I said, you got to be strong over the middle. You got to be better at safety. Jamarcus Cooley started off strong, and then we've seen Jordan Gilbert. I think AJ Halsey. Am I saying his name right? Halsey, one of the other transfers. Wilson and I commented today. He just looks like he's coming on. He looks like he's coming on. I think he's going to be that guy eventually if he stays healthy.
And he was a post-spring transfer, correct? So he did not go through spring ball, so you'd expect him to take a few days maybe.
But right away, he's been like in the mix with the first team, rotating a lot. They're rotating a lot at safety. We saw Deshaun Spears and AJ Halsey out there today because Cooley wasn't practicing. But really quickly, Halsey is right there in the mix to be a starter. And so that's certainly a name to keep an eye on.
Anything else there?
Now, someone told me I've been wanting to see the punters. We don't see much of kicking. We've seen the place kickers, and someone asked him about Aaron Burrell today, if he could be a long distance specialist and maybe a pooch punter. Someone said the punting still didn't look great. With Chadwick, I haven't been able. We don't get to. It's hard to see punting.
We saw a little bit of it on Saturday. I'll reserve judgment until we see more.
You know what the solution there is?
What's that?
Don't
Never punt.
Don't punt.
That's the plan. Yeah.
Punt less. I want to say one thing about the defense. It made me think of this about the seeing Harold Perkins make the interception today. I don't think this, like I said before, this doesn't have to be a defense like they had in 2003 when they won the national title, or 2011 when they played for the championship. I think it's going to be the kind of defense that gives you 6 straight 3-and-outs or something like that. But they got to be more disruptive. Get a sack, put the other team in a negative, down and distance situation. Get the turnover. Pressure the quarterback into making a bad throw that makes them punt. Being more disruptive on defense, I think, is the key. And, because I don't think down in, down out, they're going to be just like this airtight defense. But being more disruptive, getting after the quarterback with the blitz, gumming up the run, like I said, dropping someone for a TFL, that's going to be where that's what you want to see in those flashes against, obviously, should be a very productive offense.
Yeah, you would think so.
Be better, yes.
All right, so that's going to do it for us today on the LSU Sports Insider podcast, brought to you by Jerry Lane Cadillac. He's Wilson Alexander and Scott Rabalais. I'm Zach Ewing. Our thanks to Amelia and Molly for producing today, and we will see you for our next episode on Thursday. See you later.